Welcome to Move the Chains with Jonathan Rivers. Here's your host, Jonathan Rivers.
And let there be football. Welcome into the show. I'm Jonathan Bam Rivers. The NFL has finally released its 2024 schedule. And I can't wait to show you some of the notable games that I think are going to have a huge impact for teams this season. And as always, we'll take your questions via social media and talk about Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers. What kind of impact will he have on Justin Herbert? I'll definitely go into detail about that. And referees in the NFL, a lot of times, are the scapegoats. And a lot of times people want them to act in a certain manner, but they don't realize that officials are most of the time reactive as they should be. That'll be my nonsense narrative today. And also, the NFL is about building its brand internationally. It's great for the brand, it's great for the fans, but may not be so great for the players. All that and more on today's episode, but you know how we do it. Let's kick it off with First Down. 2024 is upon us. The NFL draft is passed, and now they just released the NFL schedule this week. So we made a graphic of 10 games that I really think are notable for the 2024 season. I'm going to highlight a few of these games, starting with the Ravens at the Chiefs. And this is a Thursday night kickoff. And what a lot of people need to realize is that this will be an overreaction game, no matter what happens. If the Ravens go into Kansas City and win this game, I really think the narrative will be the Ravens were able to use that loss that they suffered in the AFC Championship game last year at home to the Chiefs as a building block, as an opportunity to show themselves who they are. And now they're probably the best team in the AFC, after week one, because they beat the defending Super Bowl champs. That'll be one narrative. I think if the Chiefs win, the narrative will still be the Ravens aren't there yet. Or can Lamar Jackson get over the hump? We know he's been great in the regular season. He's won 2 MVPs before the age of 30, something people have not done ever. But can he beat Kansas City? They're his nemesis. So there will be a lot of overreaction, also because this is a game between two AFC heavyweights, and we understand how loaded the AFC is. So it's an important game, but trust me, regardless of the outcome, it will not determine whether one of these two teams make the playoffs. Now, what it may determine is which one of these two teams are vying for a top seed, which we know is important in a lot of cases. But other than that, I think it's just a huge game to start the season. The Packers and the Eagles, I like to call this the buy-sell game. And I say that because everybody was buying the Packers towards the end of last season. And I really think rightfully so. I think not only was Jordan Love playing well defensively, they were getting some young pieces into the fold, and they were playing at a high level. They were able to go into Dallas and beat the Dallas Cowboys in the first round of the playoffs, and a lot of people think that's going to carry over. And I don't think you should dismiss that notion. And I think defensively, the Packers have an opportunity to be what the Chiefs have become. They've drafted very well on the defensive side of the football with guys like Rashawn Gary, guys like Quay Walker, guys like Jair Alexander. Now they have to make it stick. Now they have to come through and be a top-tier defense to see if they can help those young receivers who were, for some reason, a liability with Aaron Rodgers. But with Jordan Love, they became playmakers. Very interesting, in my opinion. That's neither here nor there. And when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, how many people were selling the Eagles? How many people were saying Nick Sirianni has lost this team? I think the loss of both coordinators in one season was detrimental to the growth of this team. I also think Jalen Hurts wasn't healthy. Bringing Kellen Moore to run that offense, bringing Vic Fangio to run that defense. Two people who are probably considered top 5 in their specific areas as coordinators. And I think you'll see the Eagles, who bolstered their secondary through the draft and through free agency, and who also were able to get a guy like Saquon Barkley, be back to what they were the previous season when they went to the Super Bowl. The Buccaneers and the Falcons on October 3rd. Now, there's a big reason that this is a huge game. One, because I think it goes a long way in determining who wins the NFC South this year. But if you look at the Falcons, they start the season by playing the Steelers, the Eagles, the Chiefs, and New Orleans. So if for some reason the Falcons don't get off to a good start and lose this game against Tampa Bay, then they'll be in that much of a hole. But a lot of people have picked the Falcons to win the NFC South, and I think that might be deservedly so in their minds because what they've done bringing in Kirk Cousins. And guys, don't forget Darnell Mooney coming over. And don't forget Rondale Moore from the Cardinals coming over. Offensively, to go along with everything else that they have, the Falcons will be legit. I don't think there's any denying that. And I think Kirk Cousins just simply has to be what he's been his entire career, and that's good. My question for the Falcons will be, will they be able to stop the run? Because those first few games that I discussed, especially with the Eagles in Pittsburgh, I think their run defense may be tested. But I think there's a sneaky signing in free agency that the Falcons were able to accomplish that not a lot of people are talking about. Jessie Bates III. who was one of the best safeties, in my opinion, in football when he was with the Bengals, is now with the Falcons. I think this will help solidify their secondary and was a huge move that not a lot of people are talking about. October 13th, the Lions visit the Cowboys. To me, this is a game of mistaken identity. The Lions are the team that were a quarter away from playing in the Super Bowl this last year. The Lions are the team that just extended their quarterback to a 4-year deal for over $100 million. And the Cowboys are the team that haven't been able to get over that proverbial hump. The Cowboys are the team that has a quarterback who isn't signed to a long-term deal now, who may be walking in free agency. So if you're looking at the Detroit Lions, they have a culture under Dan Campbell. And when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys, a lot of people think, even though I think Mike McCarthy is a very good coach, a lot of people don't think the Cowboys have an identity. And November 18th, the Texans and the Cowboys, C.J. Stroud has shown himself to be a phenomenal star, and so has DeMeco Ryans, the head coach. Again, you look at the quarterback-coach combination 2 years ago, nobody would pick the Texans over the Cowboys when it comes to the quarterback and the coach combination. And as it stands right now, I don't know who wouldn't take Stroud and Ryans over Prescott and McCarthy. All right, that's a breakdown of my notable games for 2024. Coming up next, we're going to talk your questions from social media. We'll be back with more Move the Chains right after this. And welcome back in to Move the Chains. Before we get to your questions on social media, I want to take the time to thank you, the fans, for watching this show. Your feedback has been phenomenal. I love everything that you guys are doing, so keep up the good work. And also, to the production crew, listen, what I do is easy. All I do is run my mouth about football. But for the people behind the scenes who make sure that all the graphics are up, the videos that you're able to see are playing, and the still shots that we have, that's the phenomenal work, and that's the hard work. So big shout out to the entire production crew. And I'm going to get a list of everybody's name, and I'm going to read them individually. So no shout outs specifically right now, but just know that my production crew is the best in the business. All right, you know what time it is. Let's get ready for second down. All right, what do we have for the first social media question today? James C. asks, what impact will Jim Harbaugh, newly appointed coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, have on their quarterback, Justin Herbert? James, this is a question that I think a lot of people already think they know the answer to. Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert, perfect football marriage, playoffs or die. And I'm not denying that the Chargers will be good enough to make the playoffs because talent-wise, that hasn't been the issue. And I think the issue has been what Jim Harbaugh brings to the table, and that's culture and stability. It doesn't matter where Jim Harbaugh's been, he's been able to cultivate a winner. And if you look at that guy right there in Justin Herbert, nobody denies his talent. And there have been a lot of people who killed the Miami Dolphins for taking Tua Tagovailoa over Justin Herbert. And I want to let everybody know that Justin Herbert at this point in his career has a 30-32 record. It's not all his fault. I do think the defense has underperformed, and I do think Brandon Staley as his head coach and Anthony Lynn in his first year may have been an issue as well, but Justin Herbert hasn't always been great when he's needed to be great. Remember, he was a starting quarterback when they had a huge lead against the Jaguars in the playoffs. So while Justin Herbert may not be liable for all of the problems, I think he's liable for some, and I think that's where Jim Harbaugh coming in will be great, because sometimes the worst thing you can do for a phenomenal quarterback is ask that quarterback to be phenomenal every single play. He has to be good and consistent and then phenomenal when you need him to be. All right, what do we have next? Patrick asked, what does Caleb Williams need to do to succeed as a rookie quarterback starter? Well, Patrick, I just think he needs to show progression. I think if you're expecting Caleb Williams to come in and do what C.J. Stroud did for the Texans last year, you're mistaken. And I'm not saying he can't do that from a talent standpoint. I think Caleb Williams is very smart. He has a high IQ, and he's a phenomenal player. And I think the Bears may be pretty good this year, even though they may not make the playoffs. But if he shows improvement, if he shows that he has the opportunity to not only succeed, but be able to move forward through failure, I think that's a success. So if the Bears don't make the playoffs, I won't be one of the guys saying get rid of Matt Eberflus. I think they're in a great position right now. I think they may have their franchise quarterback. They've got a good defense, and I think they're moving in the right direction. All right, who's the biggest threat to the Kansas City Chiefs in 2024? April G., great question. And the answer is simple. The Kansas City Chiefs are the biggest threat to the Chiefs. And I say that because the Chiefs like to play with their food sometimes. Right, you know how you have that child who just doesn't want to eat, he or she just likes the food, but they look at it and say, I'll just play with it before I actually devour it. That's where the Chiefs get themselves in trouble sometimes because they're so good, they're so talented, They're so well coached that, ironically, sometimes it's the coaching and the play calling that gets them into trouble. I think about a game when they played the Vegas Raiders last year in Vegas, and they were inside their own 20-yard line to try to do a trick play, and they fumbled the football, and Vegas took it in for a touchdown to take the lead and then never looked back. Sometimes the Chiefs do things that are unnecessary because they're that good. And I think when I look at this, if you want to ask me, well, who do you take, the Chiefs or the field to win the Super Bowl? I'll take the Chiefs because I've seen the Chiefs win football games in every imaginable scenario that you can come up with. At home, get it done. On the road, get it done. The running game has not been great, we'll beat you with the pass. The pass hasn't been great, we'll beat you with the run. The offense has been struggling, we'll play phenomenal defense, which they had a top 2 defense last year. So again, the Kansas City Chiefs, in my estimation, are the biggest threat to the Kansas City Chiefs for a three-peat in 2024. All right, when we come back after the break, my favorite segment, Nonsense Narratives. Leave the refs alone. It's not their fault. We'll be back and we'll move the chains right after this. And welcome back in to Move the Chains. My Nonsense Narrative segment has gotten a lot of great feedback. And the reason is because I really get upset here. And I like getting upset about these things. And I'm going to tell you what I'm upset about now. So let's run it. It's Nonsense Narrative time. Let the players decide the game. It's what everybody always says. I don't want an official to decide the end of a game, so make sure that you let them play. Let the players handle it. So this is what I want to tell everybody and why this is such a nonsense narrative. Obviously, we want the players to decide the game, right? Obviously, we don't want officials to have improper edges or anything to do with the team winning or losing a game. Obviously, that's what we all want. But my problem is you ask for something and you don't really know what you're asking for. Because when people say, let the officials stay out of the way and let the players handle the game, what they're saying is, I don't want officials to throw flags in the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter. Or I don't want officials to throw flags if it's the playoffs and it's the last drive of the game and the winner or loser will be determined on this drive. Well, why not? Because the last time I checked, flags are thrown as a reactionary response and not a proactive response. Now, I think that there are some times when flags are not thrown and it's a problem. Well, referees do have a negative impact. Do you remember the Saints and the Rams NFC Championship game years ago where there was blatantly a pass interference call that should have been called on the Rams that wasn't called, and they went on to go to the Super Bowl and the Saints didn't? I understand that. But I also think back to the Eagles and the Chiefs Super Bowl a couple of years ago when James Bradbury got called for a hold on Juju Smith-Schuster, and everybody was up in arms because they threw the flag in that moment in the final 2 minutes of the Super Bowl. The player committed the infraction. So what you're actually asking, this is what you're asking for. You're saying let the players decide the game, but when the player commits the infraction and the flag comes for it, you're upset. So what does that mean? You really don't want the players to decide the game. You just want to blame the officials. Because in this scenario, and William told me this stat, one of our producers and a director here said that according to NFL.com, referees get it right 98% of the time. Now, I don't know what metrics they're using. I don't know what calls they have that they're using. But to get it right 98% of the time is phenomenal. That's phenomenal, okay? And especially when you're talking about the number of plays that go into an NFL game. But for the life of me, I don't understand why people have a problem with the flag being thrown in the fourth quarter but have no problem with the flag being thrown in the first, second, or third quarter. Do you understand that what happens in the first, second, and third quarter absolutely has a profound effect and impact on what transpires in the fourth quarter or overtime? So I want people to really just sit back and take note of what you're asking for. I say the same thing if we were talking about the NBA. People want referees to swallow their whistle if there's a foul committed in the last 15 seconds because they don't want referees to decide the game. That's just bad logic, guys. And that's a narrative that has to go. And when you're the NFL, and when you're Roger Goodell, who's the NFL commissioner, and you have a lot of things that you're fighting against. Remember, I think the only thing that can really devour the NFL is the NFL itself. And I don't care what fans say. After what happened with the Rams and with the Saints, everybody still watched the NFL that was watching the NFL, if not more. After what happened with the Chiefs and the Eagles, everybody still watches the NFL. The NFL has had bumps and bruises along the way over the last 50 years, and the NFL has simply grown into billions and billions of dollars. But I want you to take the time to understand something. You're saying let the players make the decision. Let them dictate what happens on the field. And then when the referees hold them accountable, you get upset. That's why that narrative is such nonsense, because people don't even understand that they're arguing against themselves. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got to say. I'm calm now. We're going to go to the break. And when we come back, it's going to be the last segment of the show. And you know what that means. It'll be time for the final drive. And we'll talk about the NFL International. That's just what I'm calling it. We'll be back when we move the chains right after this. And welcome back in. It's been a phenomenal show thus far. I really want you to think about what I just talked about with the officials. I really want you to think about that. Think about the next time that you say, we want the players to decide it, and then they commit an infraction, and it's blatant, and the official throws the flag. I just want you to understand why you may be wrong in that instance. All right, but let's go ahead and get to it. It's the last segment of the day. It's time for the final drive. So the NFL and these international games that are being created are great for the brand and great for the fans, but they're not so great for the players. I'm just being honest with you. When I look at the international games this year, you got the Eagles and the Green Bay Packers going at it week 1, September 6th. They'll be in Sao Paulo, Brazil. All right, you've got the Jets and the Vikings that will be in London. Now, London has been a place where the NFL has been the past few years, so people are used to it when it comes to the fans. You got the Jaguars and the Bears that will also be playing in London. The Jaguars will be in London again against the New England Patriots in week 7. And then you've also got the Giants and the Panthers that will be playing in Munich, Germany in week 10, which is on November 10th. Why do I bring this up, though? Because I want you to understand that players are creatures of habit just like anybody else. And when you have to travel outside of the country, I want you to understand that the next game that you have, especially if it's on the road, and a lot of times you may not have a bye week after these international games, and that can have a profound effect on how you finish the season. And also for season ticket holders. That's an opportunity they don't get to see their team play live because they're playing overseas. Now, I understand the NFL is trying to ingratiate itself, so I have no problem with what's going on. But I know there's been talk about the NFL possibly trying to have an international Super Bowl. I'll let you know right now, I won't be in favor of that if it transpires. All right, guys, don't forget that you can not only watch us right here on the Sports Leader WX2X Fox 54, but you can also go on YouTube to watch Move the Chains. The channel is @move_the_chains. Make sure you leave a comment, leave a question, and tell us what you love and tell us what you don't love about the show, because it always makes us better. All right, I'm your boy, Jonathan Rivers. It's been a blessing to be here with you as always. And until next time, God bless.